Welcome to Gemara Academy. In this class, we will learn the Rashis and Masechta Shabbos on Daf Zayin Amud Beis and Daf Ches Amud Aleph. Let's begin. In the Gemara, we presented the teaching of Rav Gidl that a house that's less than 10 tefachim high, a person can't carry in it Dalet Amas. So Abaye said about this, Chokak Bay, if he carved in it, Bekarka Habayis B'Emtzeisei, on the ground of the house in its center, Arba'a Be'erich V'Reicha, 4 tefachim by length and width, V'Hishlima, and he completed it, B'Mokim Chakak, in the place of the carving, L'cholol Yud Gavaya, to a space of 10 tefachim high, Ada Kirya, till the ceiling. So Nasa Kol Abayis Kulei Chayri Rishus HaYachid, the whole house in its entirety becomes Chayri Rishus HaYachid. And Rashi explains, K'may Kaisli Rishus HaYachid, Uvehem Chayrim, Klape Rishus HaYachid, like walls in Rishus HaYachid, that have in them holes facing the Rishus HaYachid, Shehim Ke Rishus HaYachid, that they are like a Rishus HaYachid, Vahani Nami, and these two, Kaven the Neged HaChakak Rishus HaYachid Gomer, since opposite the carving is a complete Rishus HaYachid, the area that was carved out is now 4 by 4 and 10 tefachim high, making it a complete Rishus HaYachid. So Inach Hava Peish Shal Tashmishi Rishus HaYachid, the rest of the house it's referring to, the rest are corners of use of a Rishus HaYachid. So just like the holes in a wall are considered used by the Rishus HaYachid, the rest of the house is considered used by the center part, which is the Rishus HaYachid. The Gemara brought a supportive teaching that says that the holes in the wall of a Rishus HaYachid are like a Rishus HaYachid. It also spoke about the holes in the wall of a Rishus HaRabim, Chayri Rishus HaRabim. So Rashi explains what they are. They are chayrim shebiksalim klapi Rishus HaRabim. They are holes in the walls that are facing Rishus HaRabim. So over there, Abaye said these holes have the status of Rishus HaRabim, and Rava said lav ki Rishus HaRabim damu. The holes in the wall of Rishus HaRabim are not like a Rishus HaRabim. So what are they? Ela Rishus la'atzmanhin. Rather, they are a Rishus unto themselves. Ve'im rechavim dalid have karmelis, and if they are 4 by 4 tefachim wide, they're a karmelis. Ve'iloi, and if they're not 4 by 4 tefachim wide, have a mokim p'tor, they're a mokim p'tor. And Gemara then presented a question from Rava on Abaye. And the question is, it says, Lei nitzrucha, we don't need it. What's it referring to? Says Rashi, Ve'hakarmelis detoni bebraisa. And the word Ve'hakarmelis that it says in the Braisa, Ukma Rav Dimi B'Karen Zavis Chulu. Rav Dimi established it by a corner, etc., by a corner that's removed from the Rishus HaRabim, that it is a karmelis. So Rava asked Abaye to have a Chayr Rishus HaRabim. Let it be like Chayr Rishus HaRabim. Just like the holes in Rishus HaRabim are an area that's removed from the Rishus HaRabim, they have the status of a Rishus HaRabim. The Karen Zavis that's removed from the Rishus HaRabim should also have the status of the Rishus HaRabim. V'amai have a karmelis. And why is it a karmelis? And Abaye answered, and then Rava presented another question on Abaye from a Mishnah where it says that if somebody threw an item 4 amos from Rishus HaRabim at a wall, he is, and it's lower than 10 tefachim, he is chayiv. So it was asked on this Mishnah, but it didn't rest. He threw it at the wall, but it didn't rest on the wall. And when it came back after hitting the wall, it fell. When it came back, it fell within Dalet Amos, within 4 amos, because it was the exact distance. Because it must be that when it hits the wall, it jumps back. So the Gemara explained that it's referring to a fatty fig that's stuck. Not Rabbi Yochanan explained. It's referring to a fatty fig that's stuck to the wall. So Rava asked Abaye, why don't we explain that it's referring to that it fell into a hole in the wall? Because according to Abaye, that hole in the wall facing Rishus HaRabim has the status of Rishus HaRabim. So Abaye gave 2 answers. One is V'shani tzur v'chifetz, a stone and other item is different. Garsinan says Rashi, this is the correct girsa. What's the answer he gave him? Kaleimer, meaning, because is it's by a wall that has a wall. Va'afilu ha, we're talking about a wall that has a hole. And nevertheless, Rabbi Yochanan didn't establish it by when it landed in a hole. He preferred to establish it by a fatty fig. Because it's not the way of a rock or other item to land by throwing in the place they fall. It's common that if an item is thrown into a hole, it will bounce out. And therefore, Rabbi Yochanan didn't explain that it's referring to a case that it landed in a hole because it's unlikely to remain in the hole. He preferred to say that it's referring to a case of a fatty fig that's stuck to the wall. The second answer he gave is that if it's referring to that it landed in a hole, then also higher than 10 tefachim, it will be chayiv. So why does it say in the Mishnah that lower than 10 tefachim, it's like throwing it on the ground and one is chayiv, and higher than 10 tefachim is like throwing in the ear? If it landed in a hole, why is it like throwing in the ear? But it's from Rishus HaRabim to Rishus HaYachid. When he threw it into a hole higher than 10 tefachim, he threw from the Rishus HaRabim to Rishus HaYachid. Tahavale Gavaya Yud Rishus Latzmi. The reason it's a Rishus Hayachid is because it's 10 Tfachim high and it's a Rishus unto itself. The Gemara explained, so if it's 4 by 4 Tfachim and 10 Tfachim high, it's a Rishus Hayachid. And even if it's not 4 by 4 Tfachim wide, there it's a machlekes of Rabbi Meir v'Rabbanan, Rabbi Meir and the Rabbanan. Where is this machlekes? Says Rashi, b'Masechtas Yuma gabi mezuzah. It's Masechtas Yuma regarding a mezuzah. And Rabbi Meir Savar, Rabbi Meir holds davar she'ein by shear, something that doesn't have the required shear. V'yesham oivi v'rachav, and there is over there the thickness and width to lachkei kol hashlan l'chashir, to carve and complete it to the required shear. Amrinan k'man d'chakuk dami. Rabbi Meir says we say it's as if it's carved. V'hachanami l'Rabbi Meir, and here also according to Rabbi Meir, chaykikin lahashlam v'chayiv. We will say even if the hole is not 4 by 4, we'll carve it to complete it, and he threw it to Rosh Hashanah and he'll be chayiv. So why does it say it's like throwing in the ear? Now who says the Mishnah follows Rabbi Meir? The whole premise is it follows Rabbi Meir, and he should be chayiv whether it's 4 by 4 or even if it's not, because we'll say chaykikin lahashlam and he should be chayiv. Says Rashi, v'stam Mishnah Rabbi Meir, and a stam Mishnah is Rabbi Meir, and this Mishnah is a stam Mishnah. So since it doesn't say that higher than 10 tefachim is chayiv, it's clear that it didn't land in a hole, because in a hole it would be chayiv, and that's why Rabbi Yochanan explained it's referring to a fig that's stuck to the wall. The next piece of Gemara, we said that it seems that the teaching of Rav Chisda fits like Rebbe. The Amar Rebbe, it's that he says like Rebbe. Says Rashi, what is this? The leibai hanocha agabi mokim daled, that it's not required to have a hanocha on a place that's 4 by 4 tefachim when it comes to carrying into a rishus hayachid. Now, where do we have this? That Rebbe says that we do not need an area of 4 by 4 in the rishus hayachid, and the Rabbanan say we do. Zarek v'nach, it says if one threw and it landed. It says if somebody threw an item and it landed on a ziz kol shehu, on a very small area. So kasaka daitach, we thought merishas harabim l'rishas hayachid. Now we thought that the case is referring to that he threw an item from the rishas harabim into the rishas hayachid. Rebbe says when it landed on a ziz kol shehu, the person's chayiv, which shows us that Rebbe doesn't require that the hanacha be on an area that's 4 by 4. And the Rabbanan say he's pater, which shows that the Rabbanan do require that the hanacha be on an area that's 4 by 4 in the rishas hayachid. So the Gemara responds that that's not necessarily the way to understand the machlekes between Rebbe and the Rabbanan. And before we read the next Rashi, we're just going to give an overview of it, because right now Rashi is going to present 2 different ways of understanding what the Gemara says from here on. And the Maharsha speaks about these 2 ways, but there's 2 ways of understanding. I'm going to describe them first, and then read them inside. So the first way is that the alternative understanding is that it's not referring to a case that somebody threw from the Rishas Harabim to the Rishas Hayachid. Rather, it's referring to a case that somebody threw 4 amas in Rishas Harabim. And it's talking about that there was a tree. It's talking about there was a tree in the Rishas Hayachid that had a branch extended to the Rishas Harabim. And the question over here is about throwing dalad amas in Rishas Harabim. Rebbe says the person is chayiv because shadi neifei basari kari. We cast the branch after the tree, which means even though it landed on the branch, which is 4 amas away, but the branch is not 4 by 4 tefachim wide, so it should be pater. We cast the branch after the trunk of the tree, and we say since the trunk of the tree is 4 by 4, we consider that the branch has 4 by 4, and he's chayiv. And the Rabbanan say, we do not say cast the branch after the trunk of the tree, and therefore the person's putter, even though he threw 4 amas in Rishas Harabim, it didn't land on an area that's 4 by 4. Now, according to this way of understanding it, says Rashi, both Rebbe and the Rabbanan argue with Rav Chisda. Now, the question that could be asked over here is, why do we need to say they argue? Why can't we just say that they are not discussing the case of Rav Chisda? They could agree with him. They're talking about a different matter entirely, about Shadi Neifei Basari Kari. So this is explained in the Maharsha why we need to say that they're arguing. But that's the first way. So just to summarize it, according to both ways, it's talking about a case that it's a tree in Rishas Hayachid and the branch is in Rishas Harabim. According to the first way, that we're referring to a case where somebody threw dalad amas in Rishas Harabim and landed on the branch. The question is he chayiv for throwing 4 amas in Rishas Harabim or not? Rebbe says he's chayiv because we cast the branch after the tree, and what that accomplishes is that the hanocha has now been on an area that's 4 by 4. And the Rabbanan say that we do not cast the branch after the tree, and therefore the hanocha has not been on an area that's 4 by 4, and the person is therefore putter. Another important thing over here is that according to this, both Rebbe and the Rabbanan argue with Rav Chisda. The second way of understanding it is that it's talking about the branch, the trees in the Rishas Hayachid, the branch extends to Rishas Harabim. The question over here remains about somebody throwing from Rishas Harabim to the Rishas Hayachid. Rebbe says, Shadi Neifa Basari Kari, we cast the branch after the tree, and what that accomplishes is that just like the trees in Rishas Hayachid, we view the branch as being in Rishas Hayachid. And now, even if the tree is not 4 by 4, he'll still be chayiv, because according to the second way, both Rebbe and the Rabbanan agree with Rav Chisda that in the Rosh Hashanah we don't need the hanacha to be in an area that's 4 by 4. So Rebbe says when it landed on the branch, he's chayiv, because we cast the branch after the trunk, and therefore it's considered in the Rosh Hashanah, and we don't need an hanacha to be on an area that's 4 by 4 in the Rosh Hashanah. And the Rabbanan say, we don't say cast the branch after the tree, and therefore the person did not throw it into the Rosh Hashanah because the branch doesn't follow the tree. Now, regarding why he's not chayav for throwing Dalat Amos and Rosh Hashanah, that we don't get into that over here. But the thing that we need to pay attention to is that there's two ways, and we'll review them one more time. The first way is that they both argue with Rav Chisda, and the question at hand is, the branch is in Rosh Hashanah. The question is about throwing Dalat Amos and Rosh Hashanah, and what we're trying to have over here is that it should be on an area that's 4 by 4. Rebbe says we have it because we cast the branch after the trunk, that's 4 by 4. The Rabbanan say we don't have it because we do not cast the branch after the trunk. And in the second way, they both agree with Rav Chisda. And the discussion over here is about throwing from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. And Rebbe says we have that accomplished because the branch follows the tree, and therefore it's considered in Rosh Hashanah. And Rabbanan say we do not have that because the branch does not follow the tree, and therefore the branch is not considered in Rosh Hashanah, and that's why the person is not chai from carrying from Rosh Hashanah to the Rosh Hashanah. So let's see it now inside. And its branch extends to the Rosh Hashanah and one through an item. So Rashi now is presenting the first way, which is mitchilas dalad l'sayv dalad. We're talking about that he threw from the beginning of 4 amos to the end of 4 amos, meaning we're talking about carrying in Rosh Hashanah. And it landed on the branch. Rebbe says shadi neifei chulu, cast its branch, etc. after the tree. The choshev agavi kared the isbei dalad. The issue is it landed at a distance of 4 amos in Rosh Hashanah, but it doesn't have an area of 4 by 4 for the hanacha. Rebbe says we cast the branch after the tree. The choshev agavi kared, that it's considered on its trunk. The isbedal that has 4 by 4, so therefore the person's chayiv because the hanacha has been on an area that's 4 by 4. And the Rabbanan say we don't cast it, and therefore the hanacha has not been in an area that's 4 by 4, and he's potter. Concludes Rashi, v'de Rav Chisda the leiker Rebbe, v'de leiker Rabbanan. And Rav Chisda isn't like Rebbe and isn't like the Rabbanan. And we said, like we said earlier, the Maharsha explains why we need to say that. So that's the first way. Continues Rashi, Lishon Achrina, another Lashon, Amar Abaye b'de Rav Chisda dahave b'Rosh Hashanah. Regarding Rav Chisda, that's that whole case, which is in a Rosh Hashanah, afilu Rabbanon moedu, even the Rabbanon agree. They agree that we don't need a hanacha in Rosh Hashanah on an area that's 4 by 4. V'chi pligi Rabbanon, and when did the Rabbanon argue? B'shadi nefei basari karehu de pligi, by casting the branch after the trunk is where they argue. And again, the Maharsha explains that what this, according to the Lishon Achrina, we're referring to that he did throw from Rosh Hashanah, like in the Havamina, to Rosh Hashanah. So it's the same case with the branch in the Rosh that extends to the Rosh Hashanah. But the question is about throwing from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. Rebbe said he has done that because the branch follows the tree and it's considered in Rosh Hashanah. Rabbanan said he has not done that because the branch does not follow the tree and it's not in Rosh Hashanah. And once again, regarding that he threw it on the branch, which is in Rosh Hashanah, according to the Rabbanan. What about throwing Dalat Amos in Rosh Hashanah? We're not getting into that over here. The focus that we need to have is that according to this, the question remains about throwing from Rosh Hashanah to the Rosh Hashanah. And in this understanding, they both agree with Rav Chisda.